Hello ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy Top Hat here. In the past on this channel we have already looked at the entire history of various final boss characters from the Street Fighter universe. These have of course included the eye patch wearing Sagat from the original 1987 game, M.Bison, the iconic evil dictator from Street Fighter 2, Gill, the Illuminati leader with godlike powers from Street Fighter 3, and even Seth, the overpowered android from Street Fighter 4. Moving on to Street Fighter V, the game would see M.Bison back from the dead and more powerful than ever, functioning as the final challenge in both the game's arcade and story modes. But in February 2020, Capcom would shock the world by declaring that they recognised a completely different character as the final boss of the game, one of whom did not even exist when the base game was originally released. As the thumbnail suggests, the character I'm referring to is of course the so-called President of Planet Earth, G, a fighter who, as things stand, is one of the most mysterious competitors in the entire Street Fighter universe. So in today's episode, not only are we going to cover exactly why he is considered Street Fighter V's final boss, but discuss everything we know about this enigmatic combatant. So without further ado, this, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of G, the mysterious character who could be shaping up to be one of Street Fighter's most important villains ever. Yeah! The release of Street Fighter V back in February 2016 was controversial to say the least. Don't get me wrong, the game was praised for its graphics and gameplay, but it was missing key features that gamers had come to expect from the franchise. Street Fighter V, a game with its roots firmly in the arcade, was not released with an arcade mode, and lacked much in the way of single player content at all. Instead, the game focused solely on online play, with even that part of the game delivering extremely unstable performances at launch. Essentially, it seemed Capcom had taken it upon themselves to have the audacity to release an unfinished game that lacked key features. Through this period of disappointment, Capcom's Yoshinori Ono would issue an apology to fans for the host of server issues the game was facing, and by May, Capcom CEO Kenzo Tsuchimoto admitted that Street Fighter V had a lack of content and that it needed more polish. 5 months after the game's initial release, the game would receive a Shadow Falls update introducing a cinematic story mode to the game, but fans would have to wait nearly 2 years for the title to finally receive an arcade mode. The game would also receive regular waves of paid DLC, so that gamers could expand their skeleton roster, with G, our focus of today's video, arriving in the 3rd wave of additional fighters. The new lineup was first revealed on Street Fighter's YouTube channel on December 11th, 2017. Firstly in a trailer hyping up the arrival of Sakura, then secondly, G could also be seen in the new cinematic trailer hyping up Street Fighter V's arcade edition. Still, we did not know a great deal about the character, aside from the fact that he looked like Abraham Lincoln and posed like Uncle Sam. But apart from that, he was presently looking to be the most mysterious new addition to the game. Months would go past with fans not knowing much else. But by the summer, all of this would finally begin to change. On August 3rd, 2018, Capcom would cryptically send out a mysterious tweet from their official Street Fighter Twitter account. This tweet would read, "My voice is your voice. What I fight for is to fight for all of you. Hashtag message to the people." The tweet also came with an image attached to it that would show fragments of a mysterious passage, but there was not enough information given on the passage to make sense of it. It is of note though that this cryptic tweet was sent out on Friday of EVO 2018, the world's biggest competitive fighting game event, and more info would soon come to light. Later that day, high profile players from the competitive scene, such as Justin Wong for example, would tweet out other images of them holding different fragments which gamers could only assume were part of this same mysterious message that Capcom had tweeted out earlier in the same day, which was further compounded by the fact that all of these tweets were accompanied by the same hashtag message to the people. Passionate Street Fighter fans who frequent the Street Fighter subreddit would begin piecing this message together to form a cohesive passage, with many instantly speculating that this was all part of a tease to hype up the arrival of G. 2 days later, on the Sunday of EVO 2018, the Street Fighter Twitter account would tweet, "We will unite on the 5th of August when those at the top will begin their fight for glory. Hashtag message to the people." Obviously referencing the EVO fighting game event. The tweet would also finally reveal the entire passage of the previously fragmented text, with it reading,
"To the people of Earth who yearn for unification, only you have discovered the knowledge I have bestowed upon you. Presented with this knowledge, you will now understand my purpose. One voice plus the 7 continents to carry mankind. All that divides us, I will smash over and under to burst. The impact of my dream will charge us with the power of Earth. Every charge you build will strengthen my voice. Victory will be achieved once we become Pangaea once again. One world where I will be your president."
This information, referencing a president, was all of the info fans needed to be sure that these tweets had to be about G. So, what would happen next in this tale? Later that very same day, Street Fighter V executive producer Yoshinori Ono would take to the EVO stage, where during his address to the crowd, he would be interrupted by a booming Kentucky Fried voice, which would instantly get the crowd passionately chanting the name G in approval. He would state,
"I'm sure you have a grand spectacle prepared for these fine people, but I must insist my message is heard here, bathing in the energy of the live audience and the thousands watching at home."
From here, a man would proceed to walk onto the stage dressed as G to thunderous applause. He would say,
"Good evening, people of Earth, you may call me G. Now, I must ask you all, what is it that we fight for, Well, the answer is quite easy to explain. It is undoubtedly something very clear. Our great Earth is unique throughout the universe because we are all together as one. The power of all the people on the planet makes us one, and when we all come together, there is no one on planet Earth that can stop us. Power to the people. Say it with me. Power to the people. Power to the people. Presidential power."
G would bow to the audience with the screen transitioning into the Street Fighter V G gameplay trailer, revealing the character's moveset for the first time ever. The trailer would even show off an alternative costume that looked strikingly like Q's apparel from Street Fighter III Third Strike, another character with a huge amount of mystery surrounding them, indicating a possible link between the two. All in all, from the cryptic tweets to the live action performance from the voice actor who portrays G in the game, this was one of the most intriguing fighting game character reveals in history, which would present just as many questions about this new fighter as it did provide answers. For example, who really was this G? Was he good or was he evil? His message would certainly sound like it was full of good intentions, but the figure came off as somewhat sinister and preachery. So, the self-proclaimed President of Earth was unsettling to say the least, with the addition of the Q-like costume just adding to the speculation. So, what did we know about G after his in-game debut? Well, the concept for a fighting president within the Street Fighter universe is said to have been considered as early as in the developmental stages of Street Fighter IV, with the idea being revisited prior to Street Fighter V's release too, with the concept art in both instances being rejected. G is potentially the realisation of this long-standing idea. As mentioned earlier, on the very first day we saw this character in the Street Fighter V Arcade Edition trailer, G could be seen performing a pose reminiscent of the I Want You pose performed by Uncle Sam. The character also has a clear resemblance to the 16th President of the USA, Abraham Lincoln, a gentleman who was a reputed wrestler in his own right. Interestingly, G is not even the first fighting game character to draw influence from Lincoln, as Greg the Gorilla did the same thing in Bloody Raw back in 1997, with all three fighters, Lincoln, Greg and G, all sporting long beards and top hats. But given that top hats and long beards were commonplace in the past, some consider G closer to the likes of Emperor Norton, an eccentric man from the 19th century who declared himself the Emperor of the United States. In addition to his presidential look, looking closely at G's skin, a strange anomaly can be witnessed, particularly on his arms and under his left eye, where gold markings can be observed. A closer look at these markings reveal it is in fact a gold pattern forming a map of the globe rotating around his entire body, tying him closer to the planet. In combat, it is said that G, like many fighters from the Street Fighter universe, draws his fighting power from mythical forces. In G's case, he claims to draw them from the energies within Earth's elements. He can, for example, perform lava attacks and has the ability to turn himself into a golden form. G also professes to have practiced all of the planet's different martial arts in the past, meaning no one should underestimate his unconventional combat style. As for G's moveset, he can create the G barrier, a maneuver that offensively launches opponents into the air that can also destroy single hit projectiles. It has defensive value as well as it serves as an exceptional anti-air attack. Further to this, G possesses a V skill known as G Protection, which he performs by striking a pose, then channels Earth's energy into his body to solidify it. This can result in a massive damage reduction from oncoming attacks. He has V-trigger moves known as Maximum President and Dangerous President, with the former allowing him to cancel special moves and boost his own moves, and the latter allowing him to perform uppercuts for G-Explosion and more. His most flashy attack is perhaps his critical art, known as the Pangaea Burst, which sees him unleashing several horizontally advancing fire pillars to burn his opponents to a cinder. We had previously got a taste of G's personality through his introduction at EVO 2018, but sadly, due to not being included until the third wave of Street Fighter V DLC fighters, G would not be part of the large Street Fighter V Shadow Falls story that links a lot of the different characters together. He would, however, get his own prologue story, as well as appear in a number of other prologues, allowing us to learn a little more about this mysterious fighter. Through these, it becomes increasingly clear that the man who calls himself the President of the world wishes to unite its people, which he often tries to do through the use of social media. Rashid, for example, stumbles across his videos and chooses to decide to help him amplify his message to the people. Throughout these prologues, Rose foresees the end of the world after battling him, despite having thought she rid the world of the evil energy. She describes it as if a giant glacier fell into the ocean. Even G himself knows what she foresaw. Interestingly, within the Street Fighter timeline, the events of Street Fighter V occur in between the events of Street Fighter IV and Street Fighter III, with the leader of the Illuminati, Gill, serving as Street Fighter III's main antagonist. Gill would also show up in Street Fighter V and meets up with G after he was streaming to reveal himself to the world. G is defeated by the Secret Society's leader, but does not seem fazed by it, as he reveals that his plans for the Gate of Harmony are to use it to fulfill his mission of uniting Earth's people. The flamboyant, well-dressed fighter appears consistently virtuous throughout, giving advice to both heroes and villains alike, usually in a preachy fashion. Through these exchanges, you can identify that G does not only see himself as the president of the planet, but the very personification and human incarnation of the very planet itself. He claims that this is why he has the ability to manipulate the Earth and its magma. He sees every human on the planet, good or evil, as his many citizens, with each of them being equal. This means that he does not view the likes of the Secret Society as dangerous enemies, but simply wayward brethren and potential allies. G from his inception has always been somewhat of a weird character, who due to his interesting design and individual philosophies has quickly become a fan favourite amongst Street Fighter players. In February of 2020, in a blog post about Seth's Street Fighter V design, Capcom referred to G as one of the game's legacy bosses, with them describing each one and what they represent. They would call Sagat a stoic king that confronts his inner strength, M.Bison the head of Shadaloo and natural born fighter, Gill a godlike figure beyond mankind, Seth the king of chaos who craves all fighters' skills, and G a cosmic-like power that we have so little knowledge of. Most fans felt this was bizarre at the time, as G was a character who was not introduced to Street Fighter V until a few years after the game had been released, and was not the final opponent in the game's arcade mode like all of the other so-called final bosses. Street Fighter V dev Nakayama would come out and give further clarification on this, stating,
G is the final boss of the game. I think M.Bison looked like he was the final boss until G showed up. But as a numbered installment in the series, we really wanted Street Fighter V to have an original boss character. G's key phrase, President of the World, was so strong, I think we got a little carried away with it. His design was something of a snap decision, but if the American office had nixed the president concept, our alibi was to say that he was just a circus ringmaster. There's a lot of backlore to G. Those who played Street Fighter III probably have suspicions about his connections to Gill's G Project files, and the character Q, and I hope people will keep wondering about the significance of those initials. I wanted to get a little meta with his moves, so some of his actions have him working the audience, giving speeches, or responding to spectators. We also wanted him to be able to power up his moves mid-battle, so he gets stronger as he goes, absorbing the power of the earth and its people on a presidential level.
Through all of this, we can confirm that Capcom's intentions to get people speculating about G certainly worked, as the seeds they planted linking G to Q and the G files generated a great deal of discussion online, with some believing G and Q to actually be the same character, with others speculating that Q works for G. Friend of the channel, the Street Fighter lore theorist of MainStreetBlog.com, has posted a number of articles on his page theorising about the links between G, Q, and how it all links to Street Fighter 3. A topic I may delve deeper into the future if I ever get around to uploading a video on the history of Q. Put some pressure in the comment section if you want to see that one. A number of big questions that G's existence has raised a lot recently is regards to how or if he will be involved in the upcoming Street Fighter 6 game. Is he going to function as the last boss in the game's arcade mode this time around? And will we have the opportunity to learn more about his character, proving theories around the G project and Q to actually be right? Only time will now tell, I guess. So with all that said, that is what we know about this mysterious character at this point in time. This, ladies and gentlemen, was the story of G, Street Fighter V's mysterious boss character. So let me know in the comment section what you think of him and what you thought of today's content. Would you be keen to watch a deep dive from me into the history of Q? Leave a comment down below. If you want more videos covering the existence of various Street Fighter characters, I have dozens upon dozens of videos on various fighters from the Street Fighter universe. So be sure to subscribe to this channel, ring that notification bell, and check out my Street Fighter character history playlist. Every final boss character has now been covered amongst them. Videos like this are in part made possible due to the generous support that I receive on Patreon, allowing me to work on non-algorithm friendly content like this on a full-time basis. Speaking of my patrons, special shout-outs go out to A Murder of Crows, Carl Johnson, Sebastian Velez, Heo Paulo Lopez, Nostalgia Collector, Ben Harradine, Corey Imar Sr., Ryan Dinched, Evan Buller, Philip Nant, Azarakai, Joaquin Varela, Michael Calix, Ego, Jordan Duran, Ian Boyle, Nick Daniels, Princess Zana, Daniel Daly, Computer Man, House of a Ted, Gary Pinkett, ECU Professor, Johnny Holly, August Piazza, Justin Wang, Capcom vs SNK, Hermes Gonzalez, Man Shovel, Michael Hall, Sang Hee, Norma Stitz, Langston Miller, Noob, Sarah Powell, Vlaming Renee, Marvin Araliga, TOG Driver, Lewis Viant, John Bates, David Bale, Chris Fisk, Rick67, Antonio Rodriguez, Craig Jenkins, Synth Spaces, Punk Toast, and everybody else who backs my work over on the Patreon platform. Thank you so much, my citizens of Earth. Yeah.